We've solved a lot of problems already. New York Democrat Congressman Tom Suozzi has said he's all for rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. The congressman, though, has called Elon Musk's actions at the newly created Doge clumsy and careless. Congressman Suozzi joins us this morning. I do hear, it's funny, some Democrats won't even say what you're saying, but some do and say we're just doing it. I want to do it. They sort of give lip service to it, but we're doing it wrong. Musk has copped to the notion that there will be mistakes, and then we'll try to rectify those mistakes. But initially, we're just trying to do things that have never been done, and you know that it's going to be difficult when you have entrenched people with interests in things like this. You're going to hear what you're saying from people who probably should be cut, that just want to protect their own position, right?
The government's too big. There's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. But what he's doing, like I said, is reckless.
Which part?
Well, when you fire the people who oversee the nuclear stockpile,
and they
say,
came back.
Oh my gosh, we made a mistake. We got to bring those people. They lost their emails, and so they had a hard time bringing them back. When you fire the people who are responsible for overseeing the avian flu, and then you bring them back, it's like, oh, we might have missed another measles. They fired the people responsible for overseeing measles, and then you bring them back. And it's why are you getting rid of the low-wage probationary employees? Why not have a plan over a period of 2 years and say when the high-wage employees retire through normal attrition, we don't replace them? And we do consolidation and we use technology to do it more. When I was county executive in Nassau County, I reduced the workforce by 15, 20%. But I did it through attrition and through technology and through and right now it's kind of mean-spirited, almost seems, and kind of reckless. And it's not the big dollars because there's going to be all these lawsuits from the civil service complaints and from the breaking of contracts. So let's have more of a plan.
We've heard, I'm not sure whether it's mean-spirited or not, but we have seen, some pearl clutching that I never heard about with layoffs in the private sector from certain people on the left.
Listen, I had this.
This happens, and in the private sector, you actually have to. You go out of business. If you were the government, you'd go out of business.
Some of this stuff is dangerous. This is not business. This is nuclear stockpile. This is avian flu.
But some of it is people that
I had a woman the other day.
People haven't showed up in weeks.
I don't believe that.
You really don't?
Well, I believe.
You've been to the DMV?
I like the idea of bringing people back from remote work. I think that's a good plan, and I think that's a good idea. But, a woman I met with the other day, she finally got a job that's a full-time, just college graduate, was working as a waitress, was working at different offices. She finally gets a job at the IRS. She's working on cases back to 2022, so there's this huge backlog. She's working there for less than a year, so she gets fired. The problem is she's 7 months pregnant, was counting on the health insurance she's due to have a baby, and she's going to lose her health insurance. So this is real-life stuff. Right. And we got to figure out how can we accomplish these objectives of reducing the waste, fraud, and abuse in government, which is a good plan to do that. But let's work together to try and get that done. You will vote no on extending the Trump tax cuts. Is that true? If they would come the way they are now, yeah. $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, and they're only doing $1.8 trillion in budget cuts, and those cuts will never happen because they're not going to cut Medicaid. There'll be a tax increase on almost every American. No, so what we should do is give all the tax cuts to people making under $400,000 a year. No corporations should go back to 35? No, corporates don't go back. Corporates are permanent. When they did this, they made corporate permanent. And so that stays at 25. That would stay at 20. Yeah, 21, I think. And, I want to get the state and local tax deduction back. How can that? That's all rich people. No, it's not all rich people. That's who benefits. Well, they portray people in New York. If you're a cop and a teacher, husband and wife, and you're making $250,000 a year between the two of you, everybody in other places of the country says you're rich, but if you live in Long Island or New Jersey or New York, you're not rich. But if you're in Oklahoma, you're like, wow, these guys must be loaded. You're going to leave a cap on. You're not going to get rid of it completely. I'd like to get rid of it completely. That would benefit a lot. The wealthy, that'd be the same criticism. I would like to get rid of it completely. I don't think it's going to happen. I worked on 3 times I passed it through the House before. Once a full repeal, once a full repeal, second a full repeal, and once $80,000 cap, which would take care of like 98% of the people. Very regressive, and you want to be progressive. I know you, don't you? It's very regressive. I want to make the world a better place to live in. I want to help people who are going to work every day trying to have a better life. And we should be fighting for people who go to work every day. Other than Doge, you're on the record saying that Trump's president.
a lot of Democrats say all we got to do is resist. You say you're going to try to find ways to work with this administration.
I'm the co-chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus. I'm the Democratic co-chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus. 25 Democrats, 25 Republicans meet together to try and find common ground. Very hard to do in this environment with everybody yelling and screaming at each other. But every problem we face in America, anybody who says, why don't you just, doesn't know what they're talking about. Every problem is complicated. So to solve complicated problems, you need people to sit across from each other who might disagree with each other on certain things.
Why are you looking at me? She's right.
I agree with her.
I said, when you came in, I think I said some very nice things to you.
But let's try
What did I say? You were almost a Republican.
I'm a true blue, dyed-in-the-wool Democrat and a true blue, dyed-in-the-world American. And I want to try and make the world a better place to live in. So let's get back to whether you're a far left progressive or a far right conservative.
You got to work on them.
Everybody in America.
You got to work on.
Everybody in America should believe that if you're willing to work hard, in return for working hard, you have a decent life. You make enough money so you can buy a house, educate your kids, pay for health insurance, and retire without being scared. We've lost that in our country. Too many people are working hard.
Not Doge, but $37 trillion. Did you think everything that Biden spent money on made sense?
No, not anything.
We were below $1 trillion before the pandemic. Then we went to $4 trillion almost for a deficit. Then we went back down. Then the last 2 years, crazy. Back to $2 trillion.
The deficits are way too high in our country. It's hurting us. The uncertainty of the tariffs is hurting us, and I'm for certain tariffs, especially against
You
China.
are reciprocal ones, or
in China, you know, they're getting away with this de minimis thing where they're sending all these goods in under $800, and we're not inspecting them, and that's where the fentanyl comes in.
We are inspecting them. There's too many packages coming in.
Right. But
I mean, they do intercept counterfeit goods and drugs and things like that. It's just it's like drinking from a fire hose, though.
It's too much.
The number of
it's
packages.
Too much. We got to change the law so that we may stop exempting all these goods that are coming in, because they're cheating. And a lot of goods are coming from the Uyghurs being produced with forced labor. So we have to hold them accountable. I also think that we should be trying to protect strategic industries in America. Things like computer chips and robotics and electronics and things that are, but low-wage stuff, why are we hurting Canada? Where if you say you live in a northern state in America and you're a farmer.
Canada is a northern state.
No, Joe, come on.
What about, what do you think?
These are our friends. We should not be trying to take out our friends.
I'm joking. What about, what do you think of Friday?
I thought it was disgraceful.
You did?
I thought it was a gang. Listen.
Who was disgraceful? Zelensky or the...
that guy who's Marjorie Taylor's boyfriend who says, what are you doing here without a suit on? Don't you own a suit? Why was this guy even in the White House asking questions?
So you didn't
Marjorie
like that.
Taylor,
what about, but do you think he should have...
They never said it about Musk. They never said anything about Musk not wearing a suit to the
Okay, this is a sideshow.
It was a gang-up show.
But don't you think they should have gone behind closed doors and signed that deal, don't you think?
I think they should have gone behind closed doors and negotiated for security
Well, being in bed for the minerals is kind of an implicit security.
Kind of is not good when your people
Well, what do you want to
killed.
do? You want to guarantee boots on the ground, or
I want to guarantee that they will
U.S.
protect
boots?
them. Well, what are we saying?
I'm saying no.
No, but if Russia comes back in again, let's say we do a minerals deal, okay?
Well, if a bomb drops on my head, what do you mean if?
We've had American companies working in Ukraine for decades.
Right.
Those companies got screwed when Russia invaded. So why is it that Ukraine, with all the people dying, would feel comfortable?
Do you want the war to continue?
No, I want the war to end, and I want Putin to be held accountable. He cannot be rewarded.
Means what? Which means what, though? In this world,
he can't be rewarded for this. He can't be rewarded.
So he can't. So 7% was the occupation before the war started. You think that it should be rolled back to 7, or it should be less?
I'm not going to give you a specific number.
I'm just trying to understand what does that mean.
You cannot reward Putin for being the invader, for killing people, for kidnapping children, for raping women, for all the stuff that they've done as a hostile aggressor. They cannot be rewarded.
Well, if that meant you got to get all the land back and push him back, and if it takes 5 years and another $1 trillion and another... million lives.
That's the negotiations that have to take place. And Zelensky and the Europeans are all saying, yeah, we want peace. Let's make a deal. Let's just make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Not necessarily saying exactly that.
Because we can't trust Putin not to do it again.
Right.
Because if let's say we back out on Ukraine, okay?
Yep.
And we say, oh, you can't win anyway. You're such a small country. You would have never won anyway. You're only winning because of us. Well, let's say we back out. Well, what happens to Latvia? What happens to Lithuania? What happens to Estonia? What happens to Moldova? What happens to all these countries that are these little teeny countries that are on the Russian border that Putin's been threatening already? we can't reward him.
Some would
and
say,
what will China say about Taiwan if we say we're going to let the aggressor get away with this?
some would say we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. In the meantime, we can't throw more money, more weapons, more lives lost. And no one's disputing this is a really bad guy. But it's a world that doesn't exist on moral issues. It exists on practical, pragmatic
This is in our
issues.
forget about the moral issues. This is based on our strategic
There is an
national
Atlantic.
security
There
interests.
still is
because
a-
if we let Putin get away with
This
this,
sounds like
we're going to have more
okay.
trouble later on.
Well, just like they said to Zelensky, don't tell us what we need to worry about. You don't know. I don't. I mean, it's a very sticky, tough situation, and like everything else, the two sides have
Everything's
different.
complicated.
Everything's
and if people would
complicated.
sit down and talk to each other. I'm waiting for my invitation to the White House.
Oh, I thought you were going to say back here.
Let's go. And back here.
You know
You're
you have
invited. You can come back tomorrow. I won't be here.
If
But you're more
gonna
than welcome.
You're going to get rid of that crappy salt thing. You can come back every day.
Yeah,
You can
I
I live in New
appreciate that.
Jersey. I'm
sorry to hear that.
Still woo. Congressman Tom Suozzi, thank you.
Thank you, man.
All right.
Up next, a bullish call on